original.
And I'm in love with the money.
Hi all, thanks for joining me today. I have with me Marilyn. She is a retirement readiness coach. She is now retired, but she started her practice in 2021. You Lead You post-career pathing, helping individuals navigate their post-career lives. So Marilyn, could you tell our viewers more about you?
Sure. So I am actually retired. So I'm on the same journey that my clients are on. I started doing this because when I was unexpectedly let go from my corporate career, I wasn't quite ready to go out to pasture and be fully retired. 4 years later, I consider myself as semi-retired because this business is busy, but I'm not looking at it as a completely full-time business. It's something that I do for my own joy and pleasure and the chance to help people retire better.
Awesome. And I know this topic is very important, and getting ready, being retirement ready. And I tend to look at it from a single perspective. So when I had our initial conversation, it was very eye-opening to me. I need to be thinking about these things. And when individuals approach retirement, they should be thinking about certain things as well. So Marilyn, based on your practice, what would you say is one of the biggest challenges or concerns that somebody should take into consideration as they enter retirement or even during retirement?
Well, before I answer that, I'd just like to say that, one of the reason that retirement isn't as easy as we think it's going to be, it's not going on vacation exactly, although it might feel that way. But, you're having a huge transition in your life from work and maybe moving at 100 miles an hour to not work and moving at whatever pace you want to. And you're free. Suddenly you're free to do what you want to do. And freedom is really hard, it turns out, for us humans when we're accustomed to not being 100% free, right? So that's one of the reasons that transitioning into retirement is actually one of life's 10 most stressful events that happen. And so the main things that I'm going to name 4 things that people miss when they retire, and these are based on a survey that I did in 2023. So number 1 is a sense of purpose. Our work gives us a sense of purpose. When we leave work, what's that going to be? The second one is a steady income. That sort of makes sense, right? We're used to receiving money. Not receiving money is going to be a little bit hard. But there's another side to that not receiving money, and that is that paycheck that you get every week is also a recognition of your value. And suddenly you're not going to be getting that recognition or the money, right? And the 4th thing is community. The people that you work with, all your colleagues, your professional network. Are you going to stay in touch with them? Are they going to stay in touch with you? And how are you going to replace that, right? And then finally, it's structure and routine. And that's about the freedom. Our lives are very much structured by our workplaces and the time that we need to get up in the morning, be at our desk, eat lunch, quit. And we have limited personal time because of the amount of time that we spend at work. So when we're not working, we need to structure that time. And thankfully, we're free to structure it the way we want to.
Awesome. And I think let's tackle these one at a time. That sense of purpose, right? Because as you said, getting up to going out to work, being the boss, that gives us a sense of purpose. We know what we're going to do on a day-to-day basis. But going into retirement, we get up and we don't have that job to go to. And from what I've heard, this could sometimes lead to an amount of anxiety and even depression, right? So how would you advise listeners to prepare themselves for retirement, ensuring that they have that sense of purpose?
Well, I think the first thing to think about is, first of all, is work your purpose? And it's not for everybody. Some people have a purpose that is related to their work, but other people have a different sense of purpose in life. So if work isn't your primary purpose, you're probably that other purpose that you have, whatever it is going to carry on when you're finished work. So that's an advantage if that's the case. Now, if you are somebody who identifies really closely with your work and your work really has given you a sense of purpose throughout your life, and this is really true for professionals and people who see themselves, they call themselves whatever their profession is, a lawyer, an accountant, a financial advisor, right? Um, and if work has been your purpose, if you are looking towards retirement, or if you've just retired and you're wanting to think about purpose, I would suggest reading books. There's a number of books that approach purpose in different ways. And as you're reading those books, reflect on what that means to you, because discovering a new sense of purpose is very much a self-reflection and really thinking about who you are, what your values are, what your strengths are, what you enjoy, what your passions are, right? And you can build a sense of purpose when you understand what those things are. And, you know, it's a bit of a trial and error thing and an experimental thing. And the more you go out and try things, the more likely you're going to land on something that fulfills you and gives you meaning. Often that's volunteering, but it can be any number of things.
Okay, I like that you said reflect, because it's kind of digging down deep to see what your values are, and then redefining what happiness means to you, what your contribution is, right?
Absolutely, and contribution is a big part of purpose, I think.
Yeah, and I find that a lot of individuals, when they're at work, their identity too is tied to their job. So in finding that new sense of purpose, is it that a new way of defining who you are, what drives you, your identity?
Oh, 100%. And I think that self-reflection on your values and your strengths and your passions and what brings you joy is also the path to realizing that you are someone apart from your work. Your work is not who you are. Your work was a role that you played, no matter how senior that role or how important that role. It was a role, and you are a person outside of that role. And when you do find a sense of purpose, it clearly is tied into your identity.
Yeah. And just to give an example, right? I was listening to another advisor talk about someone who left their job. They were obviously in a senior position, so they're always giving instructions. They got kind of like an emotional high five when they walked into the office, that acknowledgement, right? And then after retirement, he was given a to-do list from his wife. So it was really a flip for him to move in from that role where he was given the directives to now being a recipient of a to-do list. And it is a shift that needs to happen.
Yeah. Often, I was just going to say that often, you know, coaches say it means going from who's who to who's that.
Okay. And you mentioned community, because as an immigrant to Canada, I find that community is very important, because it's easy to get isolated. What steps can an individual take to ensure that when they are no longer surrounded by co-workers, their team, to give them that sense of community that takes up that 40 hours out of their week? What can they do to ensure that they build that community that will support them through retirement?
Well, I would start before you leave work. You know, figure out who the people are that you work with that you really want to stay in touch with, who are your work friends, right? And let them know that you value that relationship even outside of the workplace, and that you'd really like to remain in touch with them. And then when you retire, take the initiative to do that, because they're likely not going to have as much time to connect with you and see how you're doing. So it's up to you to connect back with them and organize lunch or coffee or whatever, so that you stay in touch. And, you know, when I retired, I'm really pleased that I've managed to stay friends with a number of people that I used to work with. And it is from me taking the initiative, as well as them, you know, wanting to stay in touch. And then when you are actually retired, I think, you know, your friends and your family are a big part of your community. And if you have friends who are, you know, fairly good acquaintances, maybe not quite friends yet, make the effort to turn them into friends. You know, see them more often, go out and do things with them. And then join stuff. You know, if you have a religious community, that's important, and you can build stronger ties to that. Volunteering is a great way to meet new
Yeah.
people, and you'll see them on a regular basis if you're volunteering on a regular basis. And that's how we make friends, when we see them, once a week or every day, or it's hard when you meet a person for the first time to say, hey, you're my friend now. We have to build that trust and get to know each other. And so even at your gym, get to know the people at your gym if that's something you do. So all of those hobbies, those volunteering, religious communities, anywhere where you're interacting with people, you will have opportunities to build communities. The other one is just talk to strangers. We're really afraid to talk to strangers, but wonderful things can happen when you do.
Awesome. I do like that. And the thing is, you can marry all the points you've mentioned so far. When you've identified that new sense of purpose, your new identity, reach out to those groups that share those similar values, similar purposes, and build out a new network, right?
Absolutely. Yep. And some
Awesome.
people need a lot of people around them. Other people just need a few people. So recognize what it is that you need, right?
Yes, for sure. You mentioned structure and routine. Personally, I butt against structure and routine right now. But when I get to retirement, I'll need some more. How do you incorporate that into your daily life at retirement? Build that
Yeah.
structure, build that routine.
So again, this is an experimental thing. So my first suggestion is shut your alarm off. See what time your body says, yeah, I want to get up at this time, and what time your body wants to go to bed, right? Maybe you are actually a night person and you've been forced to be a day person all your life. This is your chance to, test if you like being a night person, and if you need to change kind of the way you structure your day based on your body rhythms. And then, you're still going to need to do all those things like eat and sleep and grooming, taking care of yourself. So those kind of give you markers throughout the day. And then it's the time in between those that you need to structure. And if you are involved in activities, that will provide you with some structure, because you have to be somewhere at a certain time, right? So continue to think in terms of I have a calendar, I have appointments, I have things I need to do. When can I fit those things in? But there's the danger also of becoming busy for busy's sake, feeling like you have to fill every single second of the day, because that's what makes you, feel like, oh, I'm doing something, I'm being productive, I'm accomplishing something. But I think the beauty of the freedom of retirement is that let's move away from structure and routine for a moment and think about rhythm and balance, and finding your natural rhythm throughout the day, and then balancing that doing stuff with a little bit of just being stuff, enjoying the time, going for a lovely walk, allowing yourself that free time, because that's really refreshing and allows your mind to be creative, or just relax, because you've earned that privilege. And a lot of people, they get so busy that they burn out because they've just put way too much on their plate.
Oh, I love how you said it, rhythm and balance, right? Because it's not like you want to recreate a hamster wheel, right? You want
Right.
to find what fits into your life, what makes you, as I said, relaxed and have life be more enjoyable, right?
Absolutely.
While still having some amount of structure to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. And the next one, money, right? Money. What's the challenge people have with money?
Well, it's interesting. As I was saying earlier, that weekly, monthly, whatever paycheck was income coming in. Suddenly there's no income coming in. And, if you've saved for retirement and you have money in your RSP, maybe you have a pension, you also have the opportunity to take CPP and things like that. But the hardest thing for people, or one of the hard things for people, is to turn from an earner to a spender, a saver to a spender. And, we're all afraid that we don't have enough money to keep us going until the day we die. And it doesn't matter how much money we have. People worry that they're going to outlive their money. And it takes time to get the mindset that you saved this money for you. You get to spend it now. Maybe not go crazy, but it's there to support you. It's there to allow you to live the life that you can live given your resources. And one of the ways that you can think about this with some professional help is to talk with a financial planner and really build out a plan for the next 30, 40 possibly years, depending on how far you hope to live, and really get a sense of how much money that you're going to have every year available to you.
Yeah. And this is my realm, really, right? Thinking about the money for retirement. And I know that you mentioned the time frame. Yes, you are planning for 20, 30 years of retirement. And the vulnerability of worrying how long your money will last, there are certain steps that you can take to ensure that, you have that confidence that, what, I have enough money so I can actually spend some and enjoy life. The areas that I'd love for people to look at when thinking about retirement and planning for retirement, you're planning for 20, 30 years. I would recommend that you start thinking about it 20 and 30 years in advance, right? Because it will take
the day you get your first job.
Exactly.
The day you start your first job. Yeah.
Yes, for real. The first day, start thinking about your retirement. And the good thing is that most corporations do have certain plans in place that can help you prepare for that. But there are certain steps that you can take as well to ensure that you are financially confident as you approach retirement. And this is looking at your areas of vulnerability, things that put that nest egg that you're trying to put away at risk, right? And that's making sure that you have certain safeguards, critical illness policy, a disability policy, because an incident like that can actually wipe out your financial assets that you have set aside for retirement, and you would want that, right? Pass that risk on to somebody else. And taxes, right? People are concerned about rising taxes because that tends to eat away at your purchasing power when you come to retirement. So think about looking at those tax efficient wealth creators that you can start from the day you start your first job, using those tools. Sorry, my earbuds keep falling. Using those tools to put those in your financial tool box, right? So you can use them to create tax efficient flows of wealth, cash flow during retirement, right? Your TFSAs, your cash value life insurance, these are some of the tools that you can use. And yes, we're living longer. And I believe all those things that we mentioned, they likely impact how long you live during retirement, your sense of purpose, your identity, having that sense of community. I saw a survey that said couples live longer during retirement, right? So all of that will impact your length of life. And a way to prepare financially for that is to include in your financial toolbox assets that are leverageable, meaning that you can access cash because of you having those assets without interrupting the investment cycle, right? Because the day that you retire is not the day that you stop earning, really. You might stop earning actively, but you want to continue to earn passively, right? So just to put my 2 cents there when it comes to money and being proactive in your approach to preparing for retirement.
I think the important point, sorry, Cardine, I just wanted to say the important point, for many people is to realize that they do continue earning. Because I think people think, I have this much money, and they only think about exactly what's there at the time they retire, forgetting that it's going to grow.
Yeah. And again, it's so important to put the right tools or certain tools in place to work for you. And as you said, right, talk to a professional, somebody who's in that space to help you with those decisions and provide that guidance. So I know I said for the financial side, start planning 20, 30 years in advance. And you rightly said from the day you get your first job. But regarding the other factors, how much in advance would individuals want to start thinking about finding that sense of purpose, that community? How much in advance?
Well, ideally, I would say 3 to 5 years. And the reason I say that is because given that you're going to be trying new things and wanting to explore maybe new hobbies or volunteering or, that search for purpose and reading about, what purpose is. And if you took 3 to 5 years, you could do some of that experimenting before you actually retire. But realistically, most people do not think that far in advance. And so it becomes urgent maybe a year out from your retirement. But there's also the situation where you might be early retired unexpectedly. And if you've done no consideration of what might happen when you retire, that's really harsh. But if you're already planning for retirement and that happens to you, that's going to be a lot easier transition than if you haven't. But even if that doesn't happen, it's better to be ready, at least a little bit when you hit the ground. And the other thing you can do is at least plan what you're going to do in the first year, so that when you do retire, you've got some things that you're looking forward to, you're excited to do, and you don't fall into anxiety or depression because you didn't have any plans whatsoever. But ideally 3 to 5, but I think most people it's a year before. And most people come to coaches and things like that once they've retired and realize that, oh my God, this is harder than I thought.
I think everything can be harder than you think, especially if you're not prepared, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that you might have to retire early, not because you choose to. It could be a layoff. It could be a critical illness that makes it impossible to go back to work, or a disability, or it could be leaving to take care of somebody else who needs that full-time care, right? And we do have to put certain plans in place to ensure that whatever curveball life throws at you, you're ready, right? Whether it's a layoff, whether it's because of a critical illness or disability, or you having to leave to give care to a family member, that you are ready, right? And it's a process, I would think, right? It's a process. It's a one and done, right? Because I believe you have a Zoom call, right? Next Chapter Dialogues, that provides that ongoing support for individuals, right? Could you tell us more about what you do there?
So when you do one-on-one coaching, you have your own thoughts and the coach helping you sort of work through things, and it's a very powerful process. And I won't deny that at all. One-to-one coaching is amazing. But I wanted to start Next Chapter Dialogues because I really value the knowledge and wisdom and experience of a group of people who are at not exactly the same stage of life, but somewhere on a retirement journey. And I started it because I really felt that it gives people more support in some ways than one-on-one coaching, insofar as they do start to build community in a weekly call where they're all participating. It's a guided conversation. I bring topics to the table. And, I would say that the one thing people who have participated in Next Chapter Dialogues realize is that they're not alone, that everybody on a retirement journey is dealing with similar issues in different ways, and they have different approaches because they're different people, but they learn from each other, and by hearing different perspectives, different experiences, and it's a really, really rich and uplifting experience for them. So one-on-one coaching is amazing if you can afford it. It's also more expensive, but I really believe that being in a group that where the conversation is guided is really, to me, proving to be powerful.
I'm sure it is, because really, at whatever stage of life you're at, having a community with that shared sense of purpose, that shared concern that you can come to, it's a mastermind, really. So it's a mastermind for retirement. So you will need that support throughout your life, and knowing that it's there for retirement, I'm sure it will be a good resource at that point. So what would be one main takeaway that you would want the listeners to bear in mind as we exit this call?
Well, I would say that retirement is amazing, and if you are able to retire, um, and retiring doesn't mean you never work again. It doesn't mean you stop work entirely. It may mean that you slow down a bit, you semi-retire, or you start a new career. All of these things are possible, but it's a time of life when you can really dig in and find the things that bring you joy, and the things that really make your life vibrant and exciting. And it's going to be different for each person.
Awesome. Because guess what? I'm looking forward to retirement, right? Finish raising kids, having that time freedom, that location freedom, that money freedom, all of
Yeah.
that, so I can actually pursue goals, right? Other goals
Mhm.
outside of work, of raising kids. Because guess what? We never know what else is there. Once that focus is taken away from us, what else can we contribute? What else
Yeah,
can we do? So I personally am looking forward to retirement.
I'm
And I'm
glad to
happy
hear
that
that.
and I'm happy that I chatted with you to know how I can actually get myself ready from a financial perspective as well as for the non-financial concerns, right? And and just to say, retirement is made possible too by the resources, the financial support that you're able to provide for yourself, right? The quality of life is determined, unfortunately, but true, by the amount of money that you have during retirement. So take the advice that Marilyn gave you. Start planning for your retirement financially from day one, and start thinking about how your purpose, how you contribute even 5 years before retirement. So when you get there, it's not a shock to your system to know that yesterday you had work and today you don't, right? So thank you, Marilyn, for joining, for sharing your expertise. If you'd like to reach out to Marilyn, her information is scrolling across the screen. Her telephone number is 416-904-9320, and you can reach her at Marilyn Hinsta at youleadyou.ca. So thank you again. I'm sure that our listeners got value from the conversation, and feel free to reach out to either one of us if you need more help with looking forward to that phase of life, whether from a non-financial perspective or a financial perspective. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks, Cardine. This has been fun.